Death is an engineering problem. Evolution provides the solution. Thump, thump. That is not just a heartbeat. It is the sound of a pump fueling a combat system. We are not looking at mere beasts today. We are analyzing sophisticated architectures of flesh designed for survival in the critical zone. These are machines of muscle, hydraulic systems of blood and tendon capable of generating immense kinetic force. We will investigate cryptic creatures that defy standard evolutionary logic. But in this genetic arms race, which construction is the most perfect? We begin with the largest biological tank in the Northern Hemisphere. Number 1. The definition of brute force shifts entirely when we enter the floodplains of India and Nepal. Here stands the heaviest combatant on our entire list, the wild water buffalo, or Bubalus arni. A dominant male tips the scales at over 1,000 kilograms. That is not just an animal, that is a subcompact car made of muscle and reactive armor. But the mass is merely the engine for the weaponry mounted on the skull. The horns boast a span exceeding 2 meters. That is wider than a standard SUV. This structure functions as a high-torque lever system. The neck muscles act as the engine, and the horns are the steel beams. When the head swings, the velocity at the horn tip multiplies. The impact sounds like a gunshot, followed by the wet crunch of fracturing ribs. While they spend their days submerged in mud to regulate heat and consume aquatic biomass, their engineering is defensive. Gigantism is the only valid evolutionary response to their primary neighbor. When a Bengal tiger breaks cover, the buffalo does not run. It lowers its head to impale. Yet sheer mass is not the only path to survival. Sometimes the environment demands a sharper, more athletic design. Deep in the Southeast Asian rainforest, the bantang moves like a shadow. This is Bos javanicus. It is not just another bovid, it is a living artifact. A mature male stands 1.65 meters at the shoulder. He carries 800 kilograms of dense, explosive muscle. Put a standard domestic farm bull next to him and the difference is immediate. The farm animal looks soft. The bantang is the high-performance version. This creature serves as the genetic grandfather of the famous Bali cattle. It is the original blueprint before humanity intervened. While the white stockings and distinct rump patches are visual markers, the dark blue-black coat of the dominant males signals raw power. We successfully domesticated this species millennia ago, trading its aggression for docility. But looking at the wild ancestor reveals the cost of that process. We stripped away the armor to make it useful. Now deforestation and genetic hybridization are corrupting the source code. The wild prototype is fading from the grid. When the last purebred dies, the original design is lost forever. Leaving the open plains triggers a sudden visibility crisis. We enter the green hell of Central Africa, where the horizon disappears behind a solid wall of vines. The African forest buffalo dominates this claustrophobic grid. Weighing between 250 and 450 kilograms, it is significantly lighter than its savanna cousin, but mass is a liability in the deep jungle. Compactness is the only way to move. The evolutionary engineering here focuses entirely on aerodynamics. A wide rack of horns would act as an anchor in the dense undergrowth, trapping the animal instantly. Instead, this species features horns swept strictly backward. They function like the fairing on a high-speed vehicle. The animal doesn't just walk, it swims through the vegetation, deflecting thick creepers without losing momentum. Its reddish coat dissolves visually against the mud and decaying leaves. In this zero visibility zone, the forest buffalo is responsible for more fatal attacks on human trackers than almost any other creature. When a jungle becomes an island, the rules of survival shift. Evolution answers the crisis of limited resources with a brutal solution: compression. On the Philippine island of Mindoro, this process forged the tamar. Standing merely 1 meter at the shoulder, it looks like a scale model of the massive water buffalo. It weighs 300 kilograms, half the mass of its mainland cousins. But do not mistake reduction for weakness. This is a loaded spring. The tamar is pure aggression compressed into a compact frame. Its horns form a strict, heavy V shape. Backward-facing spikes optimized for goring in spaces too tight for a standard rack. Global grants fund their protection, but biology fights against the clock. The world's most tenacious cattle is down to a wild population of fewer than 500. But the most terrifying enemy is not tightness, but emptiness. We ascend to the Tibetan Plateau, 6,000 meters above sea level. This is the death zone for standard biology. Most civilian helicopters cannot generate lift in this thin atmosphere. A single breath here feels like an ice burn searing the lungs. Here, the wild yak reigns, Bos mutus, 1 ton of muscle functioning as a self-contained life support system. Its exterior is a marvel of materials science. A multi-layered skirt of dense black hair drags against the ice, locking body heat inside a hermetic seal. It is a living thermostat in a frozen wasteland, but the true miracle flows through its veins. At this altitude, ordinary blood fails to transport enough fuel to the brain. The yak's physiology ignores the limit. Its chest cavity houses lungs 3 times the size of a domestic cow. Inside the arteries, the blood is saturated with a unique form of hemoglobin. These molecules act like high-powered magnets. They aggressively strip the sparse oxygen from the air and bind it tight. Where a lowland ox would collapse from hypoxia, the yak's heart pumps this oxygen-rich concentrate with rhythmic precision. It is a hyper-efficient combustion engine running on fumes. Tibetan locals revere them as sacred totems, but the animal returns no affection. It is paranoid and explosive. The shaggy coat deflects the gale force winds effortlessly. But the temperature tonight drops to 60 degrees below zero. While the yak rules the heights, in the frozen hell of the Arctic survives another relic, the muskox. 400 kilograms of prehistoric biology roaming the tundra of Canada and Greenland. It resembles a bison, but genetically this is a giant armored goat designed for one purpose: thermodynamics. Its survival depends on engineering, not just bulk. Beneath the coarse, shaggy guard hairs lies a hidden layer called kiviut. This fiber is finer than cashmere and 8 times warmer than sheep's wool. It captures body heat and creates a dead air space next to the skin, a perfect thermal seal against temperatures that can freeze mercury. But heat cannot save it from teeth. When predators emerge from the whiteout, the herd executes a military maneuver. They do not run. They form a compact circle. Calves are shoved to the center. Adults stand shoulder to shoulder, horns facing out. A living fortress with 360 degrees of coverage. The pack circles the wall of bone. The tundra goes silent. The muskox survived the Ice Age, but its southern relative did not survive the encounter with man. This was the orox, a biological titan standing 180 centimeters at the shoulder. It is the genetic architect of every docile cow on Earth today, but the original was a monster. Horns swept forward for combat, a temperament built for survival, not submission. In 1627, the timeline snapped. The last female died in a Polish forest, marking a total genetic collapse. Now, science is attempting to rewind the clock. The Toros program in the Netherlands is running a massive operation of biological reverse engineering. They are not cloning, they are using backbreeding, taking primitive cattle strains that still carry fragments of the ancient DNA and forcing the evolution backward. The objective is to rebuild the beast from its diluted descendants. The physical form has been recovered, but the original genetic sequence remains technically lost. The orox was lost, but with the weezant, science managed to catch the species at the very last second. In 1927, the global wild population hit a terrifying number: 0. A single gunshot in Poland marked the end of the species in nature. What followed was not natural selection, but a desperate logistical operation. Biologists rebuilt the entire animal from just 12 genetic founders surviving in zoos. It was a statistical bottleneck that should have led to collapse, yet the population held. Today, the result stands 920 kilograms heavy. This is the largest land mammal in Europe, but the chassis is different from the famous American cousin. The American bison is a biological plow built low and heavy to scrape the prairie floor. The European weezant is a forest browser. Its legs are significantly longer to clear fallen logs. The neck is not locked in a downward angle. It is flexible, designed to reach high branches and strip bark. In the dense silence of the Białowieża forest, you hear the mechanics of this design before you see it, dead quiet. Then, the sharp crack of snapping timber. The beast moves through the vegetation with the momentum of a small car. It does not graze, it shapes the architecture of the woods. The bull turns his massive head, crashes through a wall of undergrowth, and vanishes into the deep green. The European weezant relies on stealth within the shadows, but in the humid jungles of India, concealment is unnecessary when you weigh as much as a mid-sized sedan. This is the gower, the absolute zenith of wild cattle, a biological tank engineered for total domination. Standing at the shoulder, a male towers at 220 centimeters. That is taller than a professional basketball player, but height is secondary to raw density. The massive dorsal ridge on its back acts as an anchor for neck muscles capable of snapping a predator's spine. In these forests, the Bengal tiger is usually the apex hunter, but physics dictates the hierarchy here. A large tiger weighs 200 kilograms kilograms. The bull outweighs the cat by a factor of 7. To attack a healthy male is not predation, it is suicide. The tiger steps aside. The gower does not need to fight to prove its dominance. It simply exists. This beast defines the absolute upper limit of bovine growth. 1,500 kilograms. The gower dominates through sheer mass, but the master of the American prairies relies on a unique feat of skeletal engineering. Look at the silhouette. That massive hump on the shoulders is not a reserve of fat. It is a biological fulcrum. Under the skin, the thoracic vertebrae extend upward like spikes, anchoring a cable system of thick ligaments and muscle. This mechanism turns the skull into a heavy-duty plow. In deep winter, the bison drops its head. The hump muscles fire. The neck sweeps side to side, clearing meters of packed snow to expose the frozen grass beneath, a hydraulic shovel made of bone and sinew. But how does a 1,000-kilogram fortress generate enough torque to reach 55 kilometers per hour? The propulsion is explosive. This beast is faster than a racehorse on rough terrain. It can clear a vertical fence of 180 centimeters from a standing start, a jump higher than the average human male. The ground vibrates under the impact of hooves as the herd accelerates. They move like a single organism, thundering across the plains and vanishing into the horizon, leaving the solid earth behind. If the bison is a 1,000-kilogram engine of kinetic energy, the next subject survives by abandoning physical strength entirely. In the cold currents of southern Australia, the leafy sea dragon is a masterclass in material deception. It replaces standard biological skin with the texture of drifting flora. Every inch of its frame is covered in ragged, leaf-like appendages that mimic the cellular structure of seaweed, breaking up the silhouette until the animal disappears into the background noise. This is not decoration, it is camouflage engineering. To move, the creature relies on dorsal and pectoral fins that are optically invisible. These transparent membranes oscillate at a high frequency, vibrating so rapidly that the human eye cannot track the motion. A ghost engine. The thrust is microscopic, generating just enough force to stabilize the body, but not enough to fight the water. The dragon is a prisoner of the flow. It accepts the drift. To the predator scanning the reef, there is no prey here, only floating debris. Absolute stillness. But while some creatures disappear to escape death, others vanish to inflict it. In the dense reed beds of Eurasia, the purple heron stands 90 centimeters tall. Forget the tapestry of chestnut and gray feathers. This animal is not a painting. It is a loaded weapon waiting for a trigger. The bird remains absolutely motionless for up to 4 hours. But inside the neck, tension is critical. The cervical vertebrae are not stacked in a straight line. Evolution has modified the 6th vertebra to act as a hinge, locking the neck into a tight spring-loaded S shape. Muscles contract, storing potential energy like a drawn longbow. The target drifts into range. Time expands. The mechanism releases. The S shape collapses instantly. The head is thrown forward at a 0-degree angle of attack. The beak slices through the air with a sharp hiss. 40 milliseconds from stillness to impact. The strike is faster than a human blink. The prey is speared before the water surface even ripples. A flash of silver and the beak snaps shut. From the ideal aerodynamics of the heron, we descend to a total rejection of hydrodynamics. On the volcanic seabed of the Galapagos, evolution committed an engineering error that somehow works. Meet the red-lipped batfish. At depths exceeding 30 meters, this creature defies the primary law of the ocean. It is a fish that cannot swim. The pectoral fins have lost their flexibility, transforming into rigid, calcified levers. They do not stroke the water, they strike the sand. The fish performs a clumsy mechanical push-up, dragging its body forward on makeshift crutches. It looks like a stumble. It lacks the grace of a pelagic predator, but this awkward gait creates almost zero water displacement, allowing it to creep up on prey without triggering pressure sensors. The only deviation from this drab utility is the violent crimson of its mouth. While the fins have a clear mechanical purpose, the exact function of these neon lips remains a scientific mystery. The seafloor drops away, plunging from the continental shelf into the abyss. Where the lethargic batfish drags itself across the sand, a mechanism hides that operates faster than the human eye. 3,000 feet down, the silence is absolute. In this crushing void, how do you capture prey before it even knows you are there? Enter the Goblin Shark. Ignore the grotesque pinkish snout that gives the species its name. The engineering marvel is underneath. The jaw is not fused to the skull like ours. It is held in place by elastic ligaments stretched to their limit, like the rubber bands of a loaded slingshot. Tension Tension builds in the dark. A squid drifts inches too close. Snap. The ligaments release. The entire jaw structure detaches from the skull and rockets forward. The velocity hits 3 meters per second. It is a biological gunshot. The process takes 188 milliseconds. A human blink takes 300. By the time your eyes close, the shark has already extended, pierced the prey, and retracted the mechanism. This is the real-world engineering that inspired our worst cinematic nightmares. A hydraulic catapult made of bone and cartilage. While surface species evolved for speed and pursuit, this creature perfected the ambush. It is a design that has required 0 updates for 125 million years. Leave the brute force behind. Instead of rough jaws, nature engineered the most sensitive instrument in the ocean. For centuries, humans looked at the narwhal and saw a myth. We saw a unicorn's horn, a rigid lance designed for physical combat. We were wrong. This spiral shaft is actually an overgrown left canine tooth that pierces through the upper lip. It extends up to 9 feet forward, 3 meters of exposed ivory. But this is not a weapon. It is a biological antenna. The structure overturns our understanding of dental anatomy. Inside the porous surface, a network of 10 million nerve endings connects directly to the brain. This creates a neurosensory probe of extreme precision. The tooth detects microscopic shifts in water pressure and salinity levels. It literally tastes the concentration of salt to predict freezing ice fronts before they physically form. We saw a sword. Evolution built a weather station. The data dictates the path, and the creature slips silently beneath the pack ice. From the freezing depths of the Arctic, we shift instantly to the blinding glare of the Australian outback. Hydraulic principles remain absolute. They govern the ice, and they govern the furnace. Here, the ground temperature hits 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The Thorny devil stands motionless in the baking sand. Its body is covered in conical spines that resemble medieval armor, but defense is secondary. The true engineering miracle lies hidden between the scales. This lizard is a passive hydraulic machine. Zoom in, and the skin reveals a complex grid of semi-tubular channels. Each canal is 50 micrometers wide, half the thickness of a human hair. This is microfluidics in a macro desert. When the lizard steps on damp sand, physics takes over. Through capillary action, water defies gravity. A single drop climbs up the leg, travels across the jagged back, and flows directly to the corner of the mouth. The skin acts as a conveyor belt. No energy is spent. No muscle is moved. In a landscape designed to desiccate everything it touches, survival is simply a matter of applied fluid dynamics. From the microchannels of the Moloch to the spiraled tusks of the narwhal, this is a single planetary technological network. We have dissected 3 distinct engineering triumphs: the hydraulic skin of the desert, the neural sensors of the Arctic, and the silent hydrodynamics of the ocean's apex predators. Evolution acts as the lead engineer here, refining these blueprints over millions of years to solve the problem of survival in extreme pressure zones. To visualize these invisible mechanics, this report utilized advanced neural network simulations to reconstruct motion and physiological data that cameras often miss. We bridged the gap between raw biology and digital analysis. This is not just a collection of animals, it is a living library of physical solutions. Losing a species is equivalent to burning a unique engineering manual that can never be rewritten. Which of these biological machines surprised you the most? The lizard that defies gravity to drink, or the whale that sees through a tooth? If this analysis of evolutionary engineering expanded your perspective, secure your place for the next expedition by hitting subscribe and documenting your choice in the comments below.